don't make us who we are. So I'll dream until I make it real, and all I see is...
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Mentorship Monday with Michelle and Maren. Hi, Maren.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Really well. It's a beautiful, as we're recording this, beautiful early fall morning. And the sun is peeking through the red colored trees out my window over here. And I'm just happy to be alive. Happy to be
And
here.
we're so well rested from our extra hour of sleep.
That too. That certainly did help. That did help. I woke up this morning, and of course on the phones and that they just change automatically. And no, we didn't change our clocks before we went to bed last night because we just never do. And I glanced at the clock in the kitchen, and I was like, oh no, I'm good.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if ours changed on its own because I did like when I was making my coffee and I looked at it and it was the appropriate time. And I don't think that we changed it last night either. But I get up from my phone, so that changes automatically. But I woke up before my alarm and it kind of was disorienting because it was dark outside still
Yeah.
and my alarm hadn't gone off and I was like, I'm up. Am I up in the middle of the night? Am I up in the morning? Like, what time is it? And then I saw, and I had like 2 minutes and then my alarm would go off. And I was like, oh my God, I finally did it. I made it up before my alarm.
I laughed because I remember being a kid in school, and when the time would go back, they'd always be like, fall back, spring ahead, spring forward,
Mhm,
right? To
mhm,
remember which way the clocks change.
mhm.
And that repeats in my head. I'm like, what is it? Oh, wait, fall back.
I think I have like a time deficit in my head because I still get confused. And I had students that were like asking what daylight savings was. And I said that. And they were like, well, what
Yeah.
does that mean? And I was like, I don't know. And I tried to get a paper and I tried to do the numbers and show the shift. And I was like getting confused. And I was like, I don't know, just go ask your parents. I don't know.
I'm not trained to teach about the
Yeah, I don't know.
fallback.
Time, kids.
Yeah. I'd be like,
Go.
I have time blindness. Like
Time blindness. Yes.
I do not, and this is the truth. I do not, like, I know that we have to function on time, but when I am stepped away from something, particularly if I'm not watching the clock for appointments or things I have to do, time is how I feel. not the clock.
Oh my gosh. It's so weird. I feel like sometimes like it takes me an hour to do one thing and then sometimes I can get 5 things done in 1 minute and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like what? It doesn't seem to flow smoothly or,
We're just different.
in perfect intervals. Yeah.
We're just spicy in certain ways, and it's not a bad thing.
That's right. That's right. But I do not like daylight savings at all. Like it is just, I just do not like it. And because I feel like in the summer, you're not waking up when the sun is up. You're still waking up before the sun, but then you also have to go to bed while the sun is still out. And so it's like so backwards. Well, at least for where I live, my time zone where I live, like it's like that. So maybe other time zones it's more appropriate, but I feel like we're already too far. I live in Indiana, so I feel like we're already too far west for East Coast. So, because you're even further, so it's probably perfect. You don't feel it like me because you're further east.
Well, I think we're pretty the same. So it was because it was. Are we like pretty? Yeah. I think we're pretty close to the same because it gets like now and throughout the winter, like it starts to get dark. Like in the winter, like after 4:30, it starts to get dark.
Oh, I know.
So by 5, it's dark. It's dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't we do daylight savings in the winter? So we make sun the sunset later in the winter. Like, doesn't that make more sense?
It does. It does.
It
does.
I don't know. Yeah. It could be my time blindness, but it doesn't make any sense. So
Maren, you need to contact the time people, and like you need to contact them, and maybe we need to make a project of getting this all sorted out, and that the whole world can just run on something similar. We don't have to play all these games. It gets very difficult when you're meeting with people in different time zones too.
Oh, I bet.
Like different time zones, and like then when the time changes and it doesn't change over somewhere else, and it can be a little tricky.
Oh yeah, that's really tricky. Yeah, I've had that too, where people are like, okay, we're meeting at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And they're like, well, is that, 5 p.m., whatever my time is? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I am not the person to ask. I don't know if you're 5 p.m. or if you're, 1 p.m. I don't know which way you go. I just know this is where I'm at. Like, that's
that's how I make it really clear that I'm in Eastern time zone. They're booked in Eastern time zone. And, I go to Google. Google is my best friend to figure that stuff out. Yeah. Because it can get really tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was your week? How was everything since last week?
Okay.
How things gone?
Well, I got to do the experience of a lifetime. I feel so lucky. And I got to go to the Taylor Swift concert last night.
It's awesome.
Like, it was
your bracelets.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I got my bracelet on still.
Yeah.
It was everything from the making the bracelets. We made, well, some I traded, so some I didn't make, but they are homemade. They're ones you can purchase online, but mine are homemade. It was just so much fun. I got to show you this one. All my kids, like, I'm a boy mom, so we do not have friendship bracelet making materials at our house. So a coworker who has older children let me use her old bead kit.
Oh,
and so
cool.
It was my first time like making bracelets with the kids, like craft. I mean, we craft, but like bracelet crafting. So it was so much fun. So my son made me a little mom one.
Mom, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. I love the colors. All the chocolate colors.
Yes. And then red for her red album.
Oh,
so we had so much fun. So even, just preparing for the concert was fun. And then she's just the most amazing performer. She's just so professional, and she, like, you can just tell that she really cares, and that it's like her whole world is performing and giving to her fans. So it was unbelievable night. I feel so lucky to go. And in fact, this is kind of a cool story. The way that I got to go is like the perfect manifestation story.
Do tell.
Okay. So my sister is an elected official, and so they, at the football stadium, they have a city suite. And so they decided that to give back to the elected officials, that they would give them the tickets to buy the suite tickets up amongst the elected officials. And so my sister found out the week before that she's like there's a very high chance that she would get 2 tickets to the concert. And so, of course, she called me up and she was like, oh, my gosh, like, I think I've got tickets to Taylor Swift. Do you want to go with me? And of course, I was like, oh, my God, yes, of course, I want to go with you. And we were so excited. And then my mom found out. And my mom was like, oh, no, like, that was my one request. So my mom helped my sister get elected. She like babysat her son when my sister would canvass the neighborhoods, and she like stood at the polls, like handing out my sister's brochures, and like she put in a lot of effort. Like it was a part-time job. So
Yeah.
my mom, I guess, standing out at the polls one day said, well, if you ever like have any clout to get tickets to an event, like I want Taylor, like give me the Taylor Swift tickets, you know. I think my sister at the time was like, that's impossible. Like, you know, they would never get little old me Taylor Swift tickets. So my sister just kind of like, you know, went in one ear, not the other.
Yeah.
So my mom found out and she was like, but you know, that's what I wanted. That was the one thing I asked for. And, you know, so my sister told me and I was like, man, like that stinks because she has done a lot for you. And she's done a lot for me. So I can't, like, I feel bad, like, you know, I don't want to like fight her on it, you know? So I was like, I really want to go. So it was kind of like 2 days of like, what do we do? What do we do? And then finally I was just like, I can't in good conscience take this ticket from my mom. So I texted my mom and I was like, about Taylor Swift, you have done so much for Brienne. That's my sister. You've done so much for Brienne and you've done so much for me. I can't take this experience away from you. So you have my blessing to go to the concert, or to take the ticket, but just know it would be a really fun sister experience. And I think that like she really needs that right now. So like, you know, please consider me. And she texted right back and she was like, you're right. Like you need to go 100%. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the perfect manifestation. If you know, you want something, but you're like willing to let it go, it will come back to you. Right. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like I get to go now and I have a clear conscience and I'm really excited. So like it just kind of cleared the air. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. And because it's connected to your authenticity, because you authentically want to go. You made that clear, like, yes, I do want to go. But you also, and this is the thing with any decisions that we make, that shows like, no, because it feels right, you know, and it's not about morals or anything of what other people would think. That was truly how you felt. And so you were willing to give that position over and really just let go with it and know that that's the right thing. So that is the perfect example of it's that saying, if you love something, set it free.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's meant to be, it will come back. So that's exactly what that is. Yeah.
Yes. So, and then it gets even better, Michelle. So, little did we know, the lady that like runs the suite called my sister, after my call. I don't know if it was like during or before or whatever, but during that week, the lady called my sister and was like, you definitely have tickets. But we just don't know what night. We're dividing up the, you know, suites by the groups. So we don't know what night you're going, but you are definitely going. So get prepared. And my sister was like, well, when you're dividing up the suites, if there's an extra ticket, my mom and my sister are fighting over who gets to go with me. So if there's an extra ticket on like whether, you know, a night, like we'll take that night. If I can get the extra ticket, I'd love to take both of them. And the lady was like, okay, no promises. This is Taylor Swift, but I'll see what I can do. And so then like literally the next day after my mom and I had both given up our tickets to each other, my sister called and said, I got 3 tickets. And so we all got to go.
You set it free and it came back even better than you expected.
Yes, like both of us. Like it's the perfect full circle manifestation story.
Yeah.
And so we all just had the best time. It was so much fun. It was incredible. I call it like my once in a lifetime opportunity because I mean, it's just, I mean, even to like get a ticket, you know, on Ticketmaster and you gotta, oh my God, it's so hard. So, it is a process. So I just feel so grateful
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, so that's what I did.
Well,
It was
that is an
amazing.
awesome experience. And what, and I'll just give a little snippet of this, because the fact that you're bringing up Taylor Swift, and because her energy has popped in some sessions, and I've had some experiences with the higher self energy. And what I was picking up is she's a healer. So it's not that she's leading with that per se, it's the energy of her soul. And so her performances, her connections, there's such a healing energy that comes through the music, and there's expansion in it. So did you feel that vibration? Like when you were there, could you feel that with all the people there?
Yes. It's so funny that you say that, because I don't know, I feel like I've been to other shows before, and it's like you feel the energy, and I don't even think you like notice that you're feeling the energy, but but at the Taylor Swift concert, I was like, oh my gosh, this energy is so good. Because normally before going to a concert or any like large crowd, I have to do a lot of psychic protection techniques, because it's just chaotic energy that I just really can't handle.
Yeah.
And I like remember standing like literally in the middle of the concert going, this energy is so clean and so good. Like this is amazing. Like you can feel the high vibe of her concerts. Way different than any other concert I've been to. It's unbelievable. Like it's like pure positivity. Like she's just so positive and humble and genuine. It's amazing.
It's so interesting because, and that's why I was asking that too, is it's very interesting because when you say go to an event and there is, how do I say this without, like, so let's say you went to an event and like the performance, you could love the music, love all of that, but there may be some chaotic energy and vibrations from what's going on behind the scenes of those that are performing, which amplifies maybe some chaotic energy that can come through the people viewing. So it changes everything. And that's the importance of, really when you're viewing the world and feeling the world through energy, you understand those patterns. You can pick up on those things quite easily. And so with her energy and how that reflects, it's very interesting because that authenticity of what is behind the scenes is what she projects. And so that reflects in all of the energy of those that are present, so that it's amplified and amplified and amplified. And you felt it directly as being very clean, because we know that you pick up on so much subtlety of energy, and you would feel that chaos. So that is really an amazing testament to really what you're receiving from that performer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there was even like a time where she was like very mindful, like she had just sung this ballad, and then she just like took the time to like receive the applause. And I know, like, I feel like a lot of performers do this, but there was something about like the way that she did it, where she just like, you could just see on her face that she soaked it up. And I know I've like seen on like, social media before, like, oh, Taylor Swift's crying at her concert. And like now I'm like, I get it. Like she takes that time to like feel the energy back. It kind of makes me almost cry thinking about it. To feel that energy back and that gratitude. And I think that like that moment, she does it about halfway through, like powers her for the second half. Like she knows how to like give and receive energy.
Yes. And that is a really good lesson for all of us, because there are so many good things that happen in our life. And when we are, the shadows in our life and the challenges, we could not accept or recognize the light if we did not have it. polarity is necessary to be able to have that realization. And so when we are experiencing and giving right from our pure heart, when we continue to give that out from that authenticity and it reflects back and we have that experience, stopping and feeling it and being grateful for it and reflecting and really taking that moment and being present with it is an absolute beautiful gift. And when you do that, you continue to power yourself up. I know this because I do that. I do it. And I know how important that is. And that, from a perception that, it could be looked at as, oh, you just love all the attention or you love but it's different when you get into the practice of giving purely, doing the best you can and giving purely. And when you see it reflected back, there is an emotional response to that. And that emotional response is so grateful, not only because I can feel that there's reflection in her when she does that. So that reflection of the things that she's been through that maybe not everybody knows. And so there's a lot of personal reflection in that as well. And so when you take that back, there is nothing in this world that feels as good as receiving that true love, that sense of fulfillment, because that's what it is. I'm giving something naturally that I do, that I know I'm good at doing, that I give from my heart, and I'm continuing to give it from my heart, and I give myself because I am almost positive that she takes very good care of herself, and and that's a lot of self-love, but it is hard work. It is hard work, but that energy to be able to put on a performance for that long, you look at that and say, how is that happening? How does somebody have all that? And so if you didn't understand energy, it might be, well, look at all the money, look at all the help, look at sure, all those things are there. But if you don't have that grounded sense of self and that understanding of what you need to give to yourself, as well as giving purely with your natural talent, then you won't have the energy to keep going. That's the source energy that you're allowing through to just continue to give, because she's an amplifier and she's a healer.
Yes.
Right? And that is amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I felt that too. Gosh, interesting too. I was like driving around looking for, like, there were so many roads that were blocked off. So to get to our parking where we had a parking pass, like it was like, you got to go to this street. Oh, now that one's blocked off. Okay, turn around. And now this is a one way. So we got to and now go this way. Oh, that's blocked off. Okay, now we got to, it took us an hour to park. But while I was like navigating the traffic, I got a download, like the ringing in my ear, that was so long. And I was like, what is happening tonight? Like, this is the biggest, longest download I've had in a very long time. And I do feel like it was connected to her and her energy and just like the moment and feeling. It was unbelievable. And you can tell that, she's just so polished. And I feel like there's a lot of musicians that are really good and they're like, that will get me to this level, right? I'm really good at singing. I'm really good at playing guitar, and our band's really good and we're going to get to this level. But then they do things that, like take them down a level, like they drugs and drinking and whatnot. And I understand that that's part of that lifestyle, but like, you can tell she doesn't. Like, you can tell she's like, what's going to take me to the next level and be the best? And it's conserving my voice. Like, she doesn't talk before her concerts, or like she was such a performer. She hit like every mark, like she stand on this part of the stage and shake her hip, and then this would happen. And and you're like, you get it for like the first 5 songs. You're like, yeah, anybody can memorize those lines. But then 3 hours into the concert, you're like, you're still hitting your marks. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that is interesting that you say that, because I really feel that she's not in a competition with other people. It's truly evolving herself, and what that excitement of what that creates, and so that continuing to level up, and that is again another great lesson for all of us, because truly what we do, those that maybe are perceived in some ways as being in competition with you are reflections of you. They're reflections. And so take inspiration, learn from, but there's really no competition. There isn't, because we are in competition with ourselves in a healthy way that is like, what am I learning and how do I level that up? How do I better that? And that is the journey. It's not about the pushing up and trying to get yourself, over top of others. And you could really tell that that is part of her system, whether she describes it that way or not. But that is what's happening. That's awesome.
She might, because she had some like witchy things that she did during her performance. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's really cool.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some influence in there. Her energy feels quite open. And I won't get into them today because they involve another person that I don't have her permission to share at all. But I do have some interesting stories with her higher self and some things that have happened. And it's very magical. Very magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me relive my amazing experience.
We're basking in that energy. We're basking in it because I can feel it off of you.
I mean, can't you feel it? Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so, and that's why she, the Friday night performance, she broke the stadium's record for attendance for any, performance or sporting event or any. I mean, we've had the Super Bowl, and she broke the record on Friday.
That's awesome.
And then I saw her Saturday, and she said that she broke her own record Saturday. She broke Friday's record on Saturday. So, yeah. So, I mean, people feel it. People feel it.
Definitely. Definitely. That is a very, very pure energy that's pumping out. So that is wonderful, because people need it. Many people need it, especially right now. So that is a beautiful energy to amplify. I wanted to actually, speaking of energy, I wanted to talk about something today, because there's been a theme, and I always, whenever there's a theme of something that pops up, there, obviously this is something that many of us have either experienced or we're going through or we will go through. And it's really in recognition of transformation, of our transformations. I'm going to focus more on the relationships. But let me just kind of explain what I'm thinking, what's coming in. So I had somebody, and I'll say one person in particular, but there were a few that had different aspects of the same thing. And what it is that so many of us are experiencing these transformations. So in our awakening, the biggest transformation that happens as we wake up to ourselves, our world, our new perspective in whatever the catalyst was that has created this in our life. And we get to a point where we are sharing this with those that are around us, maybe our friends, our family, people that we've known for our whole life. And maybe we're explaining concepts that they don't believe in or understand. And their perspective of you is based on how you've always been throughout your life. Now, it's important to know that perspective is not truth. Perspective is built on experience, opinion. Perspective comes from the ego within us. And again, the ego is not a bad thing. It is there to help us have that individual experience to be able to have the I in life. So I'm going to use myself as an example because that is the best example that I have, truly. When I had my first awakening, because we have many transformations. Everything is cycles. And so if we are on the journey of continuing to grow ourselves, every challenge that comes forward, every situation, every good thing or what we perceive as a negative thing is an opportunity for us to learn and grow. And when we do that, we will experience more expansion. And that can be a very isolating experience because it's something that's happening within us. So even though our world is completely consumed in, oh my gosh, like these new things are happening. I'm experiencing something I've experienced my entire life, but I'm now experiencing it in a completely new way. And that doesn't always translate on the outside to other people. And so what I'm talking about in particular, and what this one person brought forward to me was, why is it that I'm doing everything that I can to make myself better? I'm trying to heal myself. I really want my friends, my family to also have this information. I want to take care of them. I want them to be able to grow too. Or what if I grow and I'm having difficulty being around my friends or my family and I feel more isolated than ever because I can't be the person that I used to be anymore. And that is such a common theme that has popped up, in my life, in many people's lives. And how do we deal with that? What do we do with that? So when I had my awakening, the people that were closest to me, I gave them as much as I felt I could with letting them in on knowing what was happening to me. But there was also a great big piece of it that I just couldn't, because I didn't know exactly what it meant or where it was leading to. And I was not as grounded at all at that time. So it was a lot of this, like, woo, I'm on a high, and whoa, I'm on a low. And it was a lot of up and down. And looking back at it, I definitely felt that I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you get there. I'm going to give as much information as I can because I want you to be with me, because there was a fear in the back of my mind that said, if I don't do this and you don't do this, we're not going to be able to be together anymore. Our life is going to fall apart. Our relationship is going to fall apart. And so what I didn't realize at that time was people that were closest to me were maybe concerned about me. They didn't understand what was happening to me. They looked at the fact that I just had a major illness. I'd gone through addiction. I had children with special needs. I had all these things going on. So the perspective was, she is losing her mind. She's cracking. And I can see that. I can see how that would be there. But when I started to pick up on that doubt from people, I started to pull back. And at that time, I pulled back out of self-preservation because I had experienced being pushed down, or I had experienced in my past that, no, you're weird. And, going through that being made fun of or being isolated for being different and not understanding what that was or why that was. And so it wasn't that I was blaming somebody else, but I just did that. I'm just not going to share certain things with you. And what was happening behind the scenes that people didn't see in my life was I was studying, I was meditating. I was so consumed in the process of understanding what was happening to me, and I couldn't even verbalize the experiences that were happening. But when I tried to, I didn't feel the words were really giving what it needed. So now, taking that experience and kind of understanding what I'm hearing from others, the biggest thing is, how do we navigate our relationships? How do we handle our own transformation when maybe somebody else is doing it in a completely different way? Maybe somebody else's beliefs are on the opposite spectrum. And maybe that's something that you've all known your entire life, that their beliefs are different. But now you're at a point where you're not able to hide how you feel. You don't want to hide how you feel. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, the first thing is, because you're transforming, it does not mean that your relationships are all going to end. Sometimes it does.
So right? I have a question. I feel like you're like stage one, like what you're describing and what you went through sounds like the dark night of the soul stage, where you kind of like withdraw and heal and become this new version of yourself.
Yes.
And that stage is not permanent, right? So like you're saying, you don't have to end your relationship. Some will just naturally, but like the important ones that are important to you, you don't have to end those. But there might be like a time where you are separated and healing and growing stronger in your new self, right?
Yes.
Like you're getting comfortable in your new shell, your little hermit crab. You walked out of one shell and you're getting comfortable in your new one.
Yes. And the thing is too, is part of the reason why we have that sense of isolation or that need to isolate ourselves is purposeful, because to truly understand ourselves and where we're at is to be able to be with our own thoughts, to be able to be in our own emotions, because that time was so important for me, because that began my process of being able to stabilize my emotions in understanding where they're truly coming from. But not only that, it began the process of understanding the hurt that I had felt from other people and my responsibility in it, so that I was able to lift off the blame that I was placing, because I had so much resentment inside that I wasn't expressing. And that's what would build up and make me sick all the time, was all this pain that I wanted to not direct. I knew enough not to continue directing it, but my defensiveness and all of these things were so tight around me. So I had to be able to undo them. And I'll give you a little piece. On my wedding day, somebody in my wedding party that I was very close to, and this is kind of where I was at on my wedding day, they were going through something very challenging in their life, and were going through a huge change. I was so worried about them on my wedding day and how upset they were, that on my wedding night, because they left the wedding without saying goodbye, they just left. I was so concerned that I was on the phone at 1:00 in the morning trying to call to find out where they were. Okay.
Michelle. Yes. Oh.
That's how consumed I was. And I was taking on everybody else's issues. And I was more, the need that I was feeling was, I felt guilty for being happy and having a great time. And my life was, going in a direction that was making me happy. and somebody else that I felt responsible for their emotions was not. And I felt like it was my duty to make sure they were okay. That's how backwards my behavior was. But yet I knew that like deep down inside, I knew that that wasn't right. That wasn't doing me any good. So if you can take that experience and multiply that through every relationship I had, it was me always wanting to make everything okay around me. What was the need to that? What was that giving me? Because we will continue to do something as long as there's a need for it. The need was, if everybody around me is okay, then I'm okay. The need was, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna confront anything because I don't want confrontation. I'm either gonna run away from confrontation or I'm going to try and sort it out. So I was using my mind and my intuitive feelings to control other situations to make me feel at peace. So I was bypassing myself all the time. So I was manifesting experiences and creating from the ideas and beliefs and experiences of other people. So I wasn't really experiencing myself all the time. Because as soon as myself would come in, I'd start to see how that upset other people. And so I would pull that back. So when it came time for the major catalyst of the things that had to happen to get me to wake up, to change things, I kept a lot of that very much to myself because I knew that trying to convince somebody else of what was really happening within me, nobody could really give me the perspective that I needed because I knew I needed to do this myself. I needed to take responsibility for myself. And it truly did feel like a life or death thing for me because that's what I had come to, was an illness that was life or death. And so it was like, I need to choose me. I need to choose my children. I need to choose what's happening right here and stop worrying about everybody else's perception of me because I was more concerned with not feeling people being upset with me or angry with me.
Or judging you. Yeah.
Or judging me because it hurt so incredibly much. But when I started to do the work, and I did it silently, my interactions with people became less and less. People I love, people in my family, but my reactions to things started to change. And so that was being picked up on around me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't giving the information that was happening underneath.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so interesting because that is what mindfulness is, that they say, like, the more you can go within and kind of be grounded within yourself, the more other people's reactions won't have any weight on you. And it's the lack of judgment. So whether it's you're judging the other people or you're judging the way other people think of you, right?
Right.
And so like it kind of creates this like centeredness of judgmentality. Is that a word?
Because truly what I was doing was judging everybody else through that whole, I was judging
I think you were judging yourself. I think you were like,
I was.
Oh my gosh, I don't want so-and-so to think I'm such and such. You know, I don't want to be such and such, so I'm going to please so-and-so, you know? I feel like
I could take that and tie that behavior all the way back to my childhood and the years of bullying or the years of being rejected, left out, and not understanding. And so that feeling kind of perpetuated into adulthood and then started to spread out in my intimate relationships, you know, family, everything. And I placed myself and gave myself the label of the fixer, the bridge, so I stood in that position until that position cracked because it wasn't real. It was an illusion. It was an illusion I created for myself to cope, right? So when the gates come down and everything crashes, the building falls, I had to start to pick up the pieces that were real and really get to the bottom of them. And that was a climb, a process that having my faith and building a new relationship with source, with the universe, all of those things, because that's when they all started to continue to rise as I continued to rise in my own self-belief, self-worth, because my self-esteem was very small, very small. And to be able to create any confidence in what I was doing, because I knew intuitively, I was like, I know, I don't know what it's going to mean or what it's going to look like, but I know that I'm going in the direction that I need to go. I know that there's something here that I'm going to share, that I'm going to do, and it feels really good and it feels really right. And I protected it. And just like a little baby. And really,
I did the same. Remember, I wouldn't like tell people about my experiences or my beliefs because I was so protective of it, because it is such a fragile time, when you are truly doing the inner work.
Yes.
And that is the most precious work you can do on earth. Is that inner healing. And so, you don't want somebody judging you and saying these things about you that could like bring it down or make you not feel confident about your work. But then at some point you reach this pivotal moment where I feel like, well, it's just energy, right? You sit in that energy for so long, that higher energy for so long. And whenever I talk about this, the image that I always get is like a water fountain, like you're the top bowl, and then it just sprinkles down and down and down.
Yeah.
And then eventually like people see you as that top water bowl. As I've noticed, like I was so, especially starting my job, like I didn't want to like tell any of the ladies that I've worked with about my spiritual journey, or, I didn't want to tell any of my my extended family members. Of course, I told my immediate family, but my extended family. And now, and I was so afraid of what they would say about who I thought I was. Like, oh, Maren, I can't believe she thinks that, she can talk to spirits. Or, oh, Maren, I can't believe that she's talking about energy and using the word source, And I was so worried about those perceptions that people would think of me. But now I've kind of been in that energy for so long that it's like, I will hear people like either, it's kind of like the way they interact with you. Like, it's like, they think like the new people, like think of me that way, like automatically, like they think of me as like kind of a higher vibe person. And I'm like, wow, you really like, that's your first thought? Like, oh my gosh, like I worked really hard to get there. Like, I can't believe that's the way you think of me,
Yeah.
And then that even like trickled down to like my family, like, or, I told a friend's mom, so kind of distant, my story. And she was like, that makes so much sense. You just have like what did she say? Like the kindest soul or the most non-judging soul or something like that. And I was like, you always thought that way about me? Like, wow. Like, I guess I was living it took me a minute to figure it out,
It does.
Yeah.
And like, that patience through that process, because none of it happens overnight.
Yes.
None of it happens overnight. It might look that way on the outside, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody, if they're not seeing what's really happening, then all of a sudden they're like, well, wait a minute here, but by the time that occurs, that foundation that you've been working on becomes so solid that even when you hear things or things that people do say, because it's always going to be there. People are always going to say things. People are always going to, what that comes, and it doesn't sink in you. It doesn't hit you because you've built it from an authentic place. You've built
Mm-hmm.
it from the truth, and you know that it's not something that somebody else's words or perceptions are going to shake, because there is a world of people or energy that is ready for that you can connect with and help. And that's what continues to lift it. The other thing too is if you have, yes, there are times when you do need to walk away from some situations, like,
Boundaries.
so this isn't right. Like, 'cause this whole process is learning your boundaries. And sometimes to create boundaries with people, you have to pull back to understand even what it is that you need. And you might find out that maybe the situation is not good, or it's not going to, maybe now, maybe never. But in other situations, remember that you are teaching people through your actions of what you will and won't accept. And
Correct.
you leave it on them to decide whether they're going to be okay with that or not. Yeah. And that is another level to work through, because some people are not going to be okay. And that, for those of us that are so empathic and feel all that stuff, it's not easy to know that somebody's not okay. But then you have to go back to, for me, it was that life or death. I can't be that way anymore. That is not me. The way that I was perceived before was never me. I didn't know. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So
totally. I totally agree. I feel like that's kind of like what that dark night of the soul is too, is like stepping away, creating boundaries, and then you are it's not a new persona. It's just living in a new vibration, and having new boundaries for yourself and respect for yourself. And this is who I am. And this is the life that I want. You're paving your new path. You've got your new shell. And, and I think the longer you can be away, I don't think being away is bad, because the longer you can be away, the more you will have confidence in yourself and who you are. So that when you go back to those people, you're not like, oh, am I that person? Am I not that person? I don't want to hurt your feelings. I think you can be more confident and less judgmental to yourself and to them, because you're in your power and you're in your light. So I think that it's the boundaries is actually, and the walking away is actually very important, but nothing is forever. You can always, it's not saying like, oh, turn the other path. That's the negative path. It's just get yourself grounded, get yourself confident, get yourself separated from perceptions, and then you can go. And then by that point, it'll probably have been long enough that, like you're saying, that other person has made a choice. Do I accept you as who you are or not? And then the choice is easy.
And that's where true colors will come out too. And you have to remember that when people are hurt or they perceive something, the reactions that they give or continue to give will really show you what's underneath. Right? And that's not a judgment. That's just that's an observation to really say, well, am I okay with that being in my life? Because when you can step away, like I had many codependent relationships. And so I had to be able to see how much influence was happening in a way that was not helping me, and unfortunately, it doesn't always land the way that we hope it does. And we don't want to hurt people, but we also are not living their life, and we're not making their decisions, and we can't do the work for them. And maybe their path is not to go in that direction. And that's the part that we have to be okay with. Right? And, a lot of times, because when you change that within you, and not even change, when you transform that's within you, your life transforms as a reflection. And many times the new relationships that you create with people that you've known, your family, your friends, it begins to change into a new way of connecting. And I've experienced that. But that's also exciting because relationships are not stagnant. They're not meant to be stagnant. Relationships give us the opportunity to reflect to each other, to share, to grow. And we may not talk about it in that way. We may not experience it in that way. But for myself, it's something that's very aware. I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of the energy in a relationship between myself and whoever is having it with me. And when something feels out of alignment, I now know that if it feels out of alignment to me, well, I'm going to go in and see why is that, to see, because it's never, it's not a blame. So I don't hold the resentment that I used to. Mm-hmm. It's not there. So it's more like okay, is that out of alignment or feels off because maybe that's something that my belief system, is there something there with my belief system that just doesn't fit? And so that's where you really want to deconstruct where judgment occurs. Because on the other hand of things, if you're around somebody that has a very negative mindset, and, this is something that I hear all over the place. I don't go near that person because they're low vibe. I don't deal with that because they're low vibe. And that's a judgment in itself. So you have to remember that the universe is not listening to the morality of the connections. They're listening to the energy of judgment. So if I'm in a place of judging somebody else and saying, well, I don't like the things that you do. I don't like your behaviors. I don't like what you believe in. Your opinions are so different from mine. So I want nothing to do with you. Okay. So that's a really harsh judgment. So how can we soften that? Okay. Well, I can recognize that this person's opinion is different than mine. I can recognize that maybe they view things from a different perspective than I do. But I also understand that their experience in life has helped create that for them. And that's where they are. That's what they're experiencing. And right back to when I was doing things of trying to make everybody okay, there's a need that's being filled. So it's to remember that there is a need that's being filled. And if a person is not in a place of wanting to change that, it is not up to us to give them the words or convince them of our beliefs or our experiences or anything, but to rather, if that behavior is toxic, if that behavior is self-serving in any way and it does not align with us, well then limit that connection, put the boundaries in place. But it's also at the same time, because it doesn't have to be one or the other. It is, I can hold love for that person where they're at.
Yeah. And I think a good practice for that is practicing gratitude for that person.
Yes.
I agree with you, small doses. Like I'm thinking about situations I don't like being in, and I wouldn't be able to stay in that situation for a long time. Like I don't do well with like wild parties. So if I was around someone that was always like wild partying, that would like really, really bother me. And not that I have anything against wild partying, but that just like is really draining for me, And so I think, okay, small doses. But if you can practice gratitude and say, I'm so glad I can be in this person's life today, or I'm so happy that I can be a positive light for this person, or I'm so happy that this person has chosen to take the time to be with me. I think you can manage that situation in small doses. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is too, is that, everybody that we interact with, we wouldn't be interacting with them if there wasn't a vibration somewhere that was creating that interaction, right? So we also have to learn and understand that every person has something, there's a giving and receiving that's happening. So if it's not happening on the material, physical level, it's happening on an energetic level. So maybe you're exchanging energy in some way. maybe there's a lesson that's being presented to you from this person. And can you kind of look above the situation and kind of see, what am I learning about myself? What am I learning in this situation? And have gratitude for that interaction, because that changes and transforms the energy around it. Right? So that's what transmutation is. It's taking situations and starting to perceive them from different levels and being able to experience it differently. Another thing is too, is that, you know, a lot of people be like, well, why can't this parent give me, like, this father is not the father that I feel I deserve. This mother is not the mother I feel I deserve. Well, what if every person in your life, what if the relationships give you a sense of completeness because you find the completeness within yourself? So what if the father is not a hands-on, loving, hugging, or all those things that you feel that you need, but what if that father's language of love is coming to air up your tires, or likes to clip out magazine articles and show you, hey, I think this would help you? Or, you know, like, there would be things that that father can do. Can you accept that as, I get this kind of comfort from this person, or I'm able to have this part, this connection in this way? And maybe the mother is not loving, but she cooks really well and keeps you nourished. You know, are those things, can I look at those with gratitude and say, wow, if I didn't have that food when I was going through whatever I was going through, I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't have that nourishment.
Well, even I'm thinking of someone that I know who has an abusive mother and is very put off by that relation. I mean, like you mentioned mom, and you can see the brake lights go on. And so like practicing gratitude would be like, you know, what did you teach me about myself? What did you teach me about strength? Or empathy? Like, what happened to you that made you become this person? And it doesn't make their actions better. It just helps you understand why, so that then you can listen to that word or approach that without that emotional reaction. I think that that is kind of what you're trying to say, is like, you know, this, when you have judgment, where is it coming from? Because that's invoking that emotional reaction. And so can we get to a place where we can visit all these people and not have that emotional reaction tied to it, so that we can be there judgment free for as little or as long as we want. And then showcase our nature. And so that then they start to understand that you are this higher vibrational person without any of that judgment that makes them feel, you know, about themselves.
Well, it's because we never want to meet people in the lower vibration, and that can come off, like the reactions can make people feel like, oh, they think they're better than me, or they think they're, and that's not true. But it's more of a, because it really is about preserving yourself. And by no means does any of this mean that anyone should put up with abuse or any of that kind of stuff. This is more, you know, navigating opinions and differences and belief systems and pain, because a lot of the negativity comes from pain and anger.
And well, your question, like, why me? That's like the victim mentality. And I don't want to diminish like anybody's struggle where you're like, why did this happen to me? Because like that struggle is so real and the pain is so real. Like I can feel it for you. It's kind of weird. Maybe that's what my download was. I can like feel that pain, you know, it's real. But when you approach it with curiosity and empathy, I think it can separate you from the pain, so that then you can like be non-judgmental with that person. But that does not mean like, yes, and now we can be lovey-dovey and we'll, you know, forgive, forget. It just makes it easier.
Right. And it's never about like when you are in a transformation, no matter what stage you're in, the alignment in your life, because everything is connected. So your relationships, your behaviors, the behaviors that nobody is watching, the universe is recording, your subconscious is recording. So everything is always seen and being worked with. Everything is connected. So it's not about getting to a finish line or truly saying, well, I'm in a low vibe because myself and this family member are at odds or we're not talking. It's all about the direction that you're going. It's all about what your intentions of the direction that you're going in that gives the alignment.
Okay, I just have to do a full circle moment here that takes me back to Taylor Swift. And that takes me back to that moment where she's like receiving that energy, right? Because all of her songs are about how people judged her and it was so much harder for her as a female artist to get the acclaim as being a good artist, right? Like people would say she was lucky or, it's because she's pretty or it's, like no one truly gave her the credit for being this like poetic story writer, lyricist, I don't know, person. And so she kind of did the same thing. She just kept trucking on. She kept showing, no, I'm a singer-songwriter. No, I'm a singer-songwriter. Like, and she kept doing that. And the haters gonna hate, right? Like that's gonna happen, but you just keep going on. And then you get to this moment where everyone believes that you are who you are and you've become who you said you were. And like, that's what she takes in. You know what I mean? Yes. And that's what it is. And she still has to be near the haters and the thises and the that's, but she's so confident in who she is now. And she looks around and she says, I sold this concert out. You all believed in me. You all know who I am.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing. And so it just takes time, right? It takes time for everyone to get on board with your new you. But it will happen. It will be there if you just keep trucking through and just,
That's right. That is the perfect ending to today. That is perfect because that sums it up exactly. Because it does take time, but when you're growing it from that authenticity and you are repeating that to yourself, it will continue to climb. Something that's not authentic will eventually fall apart because it's not authentic. But just like Taylor Swift, she kept on rising and kept on pushing through and doing it with love. It's not without hardship, but not everybody sees the hardship. So just remember that, everybody, as you go through each and every day. Yes, it takes time, but you will feel that energy building in you and that confidence building in you to the point where you can't help but spread that out everywhere you go. And you will be seen for who you really are. It happens. Good one. I love it.
Thanks, Taylor.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's good. Yeah. So I hope everybody, we are opening that tap wide to all that energy. So every single one of you, close your eyes and take a nice deep breath and just run all that confidence and that empowerment and that love and give it to yourselves and continue to spread that out throughout your entire week.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You love it. Well, thank you so much again, Michelle.
Time. Thank you.
Yes, this is the highlight of my week as always, and we appreciate all of your love and support that you guys give us each week, and we hope you have a fabulous start to the end of daylight savings and fall.
Yes. Yes, right back at all of you. Yes, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.